How was Luke Noormets not in jail?
Because somebody made a very bad call. Noormets is now the posthumous poster boy for the war on bikies after he murdered his ex-girlfriend and then killed himself. He's been occasionally referred to as a former rebel, but he was never patched, was a nominee for a few months, and then the club realised he was a seriously loose unit. Even bikie gangs have standards, believe it or not, so they gave him the boot before they gave him his colours.
What did he do wrong?
Something happened when he was in jail that made the rebels wary of him. I don't know exactly what, but there were questions about how staunch this bloke was, if you get my drift. Plus, he was a serious drug addict, and while a lot of bikies use, OMCG bosses know that a proper addict is more trouble than they're worth. Jail bosses, on the other hand, loved him, said he was a model prisoner, and he was rewarded for it. Allowed to attend a late-night soccer party in one of Wooroloo's communal units during last year's Champions League final. Noormets watched Real Madrid beat Liverpool while sitting next to a who's who of West Australian serious and organised crime. One-time state commander of the Comanchero bikie gang, Steve Shorty Milankovsky, inside for 17 years for a big meth haul. One-time drug dealer to the Stars, Robbie Zanin, inside for 14 years for a big meth haul. Alessia Palucci was busted with a kilo of MDMA. Omar Hussein tried to smuggle 9.5 million cigarettes.
Yeah, quite the gathering.
Noormets was so well regarded inside prison that former Corrective Services Commissioner Tony Hassel wrote a character reference for him. That helped convince the Prisoner Review Board to let him out early. Noormets should have been inside until June next year, but he was released in June last year, which had tragic repercussions for his ex-girlfriend Georgia Lyle and also their child.
Yeah, and the crime he was in for was pretty horrific.
Well, the first hint that Noormets was a psychopath came in 2017 when he was arrested for kidnapping a guy in Ashfield. Patch rebel Stephen Wayne Taylor and his girlfriend Jessica Lee Atkinsons were also charged. It wasn't just a kidnapping. After throwing the victim, who was a drug dealer by the way, so let's not feel too sorry for him, after throwing him in the boot of a car, they drove him to Bayswater. Noormets and the others hogtied him, beat the crap out of him, waterboarded him, and then set him on fire. Luke then proved the adage that a man who represents himself has a fool for a client. He told Magistrate Robert Young that he understood the charges were, and I quote, severe to say the least, but that he should get bail because he needed to be home to look after his pregnant partner.
Judge didn't buy it.
No, Young called bullshit, threw him in jail to await trial.
A couple of other bikies are doing the same thing right now.
Paul Marsandi and Dylan Thomas are in the frame over a $42 million meth bust. They've been charged with, and you'll forgive me for having to read this, conspiring, inciting, being an accessory after the fact or attempting to possess a trafficable amount of meth with intent to sell or supply. I think the cops have got all bases covered there. Oh, and also money laundering. Detectives say they found the drugs in Jundana inside a white van. It's always inside a white van. And also found 50 grand in cash, which may or may not have been intended to pay for what I assume are Paul's multiple gym memberships.
Criminals are hot.
That is quite the rig. Paul is represented by another Paul, who I think it's safe to say spends less time hitting the beach weights than his client. Lawyer Paul Holmes has applied on an expedited basis for the police to release all body-worn camera footage and other surveillance material. He's done that because Marsandi is disputing some key parts of the hows and whys of the police case.
Not Marsandi's first time in the headlines.
No, he's one of 31 OMCG chaps who aren't allowed to play with Troy McCanty anymore after WA's highest profile bikie was hit with an anti-consorting notice a year ago.
Oh, friend!
Also on that list is Man Mountain Jason Gastarov.
Oh, friend! Oh, friend!
Gastarov and Marsandi were running the Rebels Rock City chapter when they and 4 others patched over to the Mongols in 2020. Gastarov is in the headlines himself at the moment because he is the star of this police media release. Jason was busted playing with people he shouldn't under the terms of his own anti-consorting notice.
They got him at his wedding.
Got hitched in March. Gang crime tracked down his wedding photos and found some guests who were on Jason's no-contact list. Gastarov first hit the headlines when his Waikiki house was peppered with bullets. Police reckon it was a drive-by orchestrated by the Comancheros, the gang which used to be led by suspected meth dealer Ray Chili, after it was led by convicted meth dealer Steve Milankovsky.
We're going in circles now.
Who watched Real Madrid play Liverpool in the UEFA Champions League with dead meth user Luke Noormets, who wanted to be part of Jason Gastarov's original club, the Rebels, before Jason became a Mongol, along with alleged meth dealer Paul Marsandi.
Yo, how much you bench? Seriously.
I'm Ben Harvey. For more Up Late, click the subscribe button below.